So have you ever wondered why two Airbnbs on the same street, they're the same size, same price, get completely different results? One of them is actually fully booked. They are stacking 5-star reviews, while the other sits empty, getting no clicks. It's actually not luck, it's psychology. And today I'm going to break it all down, the 3 hidden psychological principles that quietly decide whether guests click your listing or whether they zoom off to your competitors. And so by the end of this video, you're not only going to understand these principles, but you'll know how to apply them in your own space to win more bookings, better reviews, and repeat guests that comes back week after week and month after month. And so here's a statistic that most hosts don't understand. Guests spend on average 7 seconds scanning your listings. That's just 7 seconds to decide whether or not they're going to click or scroll on by. And yes, what they see first is in fact the photos, but what makes them click is not just the photos, but it's also the first 3 lines of text in your listing description. And here's a mistake that most hosts will make. They will fill their listing description with a whole bunch of fluffy words that don't actually deliver. They'll use words like cozy retreat or perfect getaway. Those aren't the words that actually get guests to click on your listing. Instead, when we use these kind of words, we are creating hesitation, and hesitation is deadly when it comes to getting bookings. And psychologists refers to this as decision friction, or in short, it's when the brain has to work too hard to make a choice. And when this happens, guests are going to move on to something that is much easier to decide on. And that's the principle, but how do you fix this if you're making this mistake in your listing? Well, the very first thing that you're going to do is you are going to put your strongest amenities in the first 3 lines of your listing description. So if you live in a space where you have really fast Wi-Fi, put that in there. If you live in a space where you're providing off-street parking or workspace, if you have special safety features, go and list your best amenities in the first 3 lines of your listing description. Next, you'll want to use really clear, simple words, short sentences that are really easy to skim, nothing too long. This is one that a lot of us will overlook, and that is you will want to align the photos with your listing description. So if you're featuring a fire pit as one of your major amenities, go and show that early in the photos. Don't talk about fire pit in those first 3 lines and then the fire pit is like 9 photos in. And when you do this, you make your listing feel like it is an obvious choice rather than a gamble. Now, I want to make this really easy for you to follow, and I put these principles in a 1-page document called the Airbnb Psychology Playbook. It breaks down decision friction and all the other principles I'm going to talk about in this video, and you can go and grab it down below. And once you nail the listing description and those photos, you are not quite there yet, because we need to now focus on what happens after guests arrives. So imagine this, the guests arrive at your property, they walk into your living room, they drop their bags, and the couch is actually shoved against the wall. You have no side tables, no place for them to place their drink, and the lighting in your space is actually too harsh. And when they go to write the review, they're not going to say anything about the layout is awkward. They're going to write something much more vague like it didn't feel cozy. And that brings us to the second psychological principle referred to as the comfort bias. And what this principle says is when guests feel instantly comfortable, they judge everything else more generously, even if you haven't changed a thing. And here's how you actually address this in your own listing. You will want to walk through your space as if you're a guest. So go ahead and walk through your space. Go ahead and carry the luggage with you as you're walking through. Notice what feels easy and notice what feels off. And after you do that, you will want to add simple touch points such as lamps by the chairs, hooks near the doors, and side tables near seating. And if you really want to get the most actionable data, you will want to spend the night in your own space to experience it the same way that guests do. And when you make these micro level tweaks, you will see your reviews improve with guests saying things like, it felt like home, it was so comfortable, I didn't want to leave. That is actually the comfort bias in action. And after you address these first 2 principles, you're not quite there just yet, because this third principle is one that impacts every single review you get on your listing. So let's talk about the part of your guest stay that most shape your reviews. And some of y'all may be thinking it's the middle of the stay, but it's actually the first moment and the last moments of their stay that are most important. And this principle is referred to as the peak end rule. And psychologists found that people don't remember experiences evenly. Instead, they remember the peak moments and the ending moments. So let's look at this in action. So if your check-in instructions are confusing and your checkout feels stressful, it actually doesn't matter if the middle was perfect. It is, in fact, though, the stress that defines their memory and actually most shape their reviews. So let's look at how to address this in your listing. And y'all, I've said it so many times already on this channel. Make your check-in foolproof. Guests should be able to arrive in the middle of the night and get inside without needing to contact you. You will use things like photos, arrows, make your instructions bullet points. And next, what you want to do is go ahead and just script out your checkout process. A friendly message with clear steps, no overwhelm, don't include anything unnecessary. And to help your guests actually wrap up their visits in the strongest way possible, go ahead and send them a thank you note. In some cases, give them a small gift or just a personal message that shows that you actually care about them coming and staying at your property. Y'all, this is how you engineer the review that the next guest is gonna see before they consider booking your property. So here's the bottom line. Airbnb hosting, it is not about furniture or photos. It is, however, about psychology. And when you remove decision friction, design for comfort bias, and master the peak end rule, you are no longer just another listing. You are the obvious choice for guests who have quite a number of choices when they're scrolling through the Airbnb website. But here's the thing, psychology is only half of the game. The other half is Airbnb's new 2025 rules. These are rules that are quietly reshaping the rankings, affecting your payout, and even whether or not your listings stay active on the platform. And if you don't understand these new rules, no amount of psychology is going to help save your listing. And that is why this next video is so critical. So think of today's video as the why and the next one as the how to survive in this new climate on Airbnb. So click right here to watch it now, because these two videos together are the difference between hosts who are going to thrive in 2025 and those who are going to quietly disappear. So when you pair what you've learned in this video with that one, you're going to be ahead of 90% of the other hosts in your market.